The conference room fell silent as the Velrathi ambassador collapsed to the floor. Captain Doyen watched from his seat as the creature's 4 legs gave out beneath it. The alien's pale blue skin had turned almost white with fear. Behind it, holographic images showed a world burning. "Please," the Velrathi whispered through its translator device, "you must help us. Everyone else is too afraid." Doyen leaned forward in his chair. He had been a soldier for 20 years before becoming a diplomatic captain. He recognized desperation when he saw it. The images floating above the table showed massive organic structures covering entire cities. Black tendrils spread across farmlands like infected veins. The Kresh swarm was eating the planet alive. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood from the human delegation table. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been Earth's voice in the galaxy for 5 years now. "Show us everything," he said calmly. The Velrathi's hands shook as it activated more files. The room filled with data. Numbers, charts, military reports. Yuna, the human science officer, pulled up the information on her tablet. Her face grew darker with each page she read. 23 worlds lost in 6 months, Yuna said quietly to Doyen. Population totals over 14 billion, all consumed. Doyen felt his jaw tighten. 14 billion lives. Gone. Turned into biological matter for the swarm to grow stronger. The Velrathi ambassador managed to stand again. Its large eyes looked directly at Hyunwoo. "The council races cannot fight them. Our weapons barely slow them down. The Kresh adapt too quickly. They heal faster than we can hurt them." The alien's voice cracked. "My homeworld has 3 months before we are all dead. Maybe less." Around the circular chamber, other alien species shifted uncomfortably. The Torval representative, a crystalline being of pure energy, flickered with anxiety. The Harani, who looked like tall birds with 4 arms, kept their feathers pressed flat against their bodies. Fear filled the room like smoke. A council elder spoke up. It was a Draxian, a species that had been in space for 10,000 years. "The humans are unpredictable," it said carefully. "Their methods are extreme. Perhaps we should reconsider." "Reconsider?" The Velrathi spun toward the Draxian. "My children are hiding in tunnels underground. The Kresh are digging down to them. What is there to reconsider?" Hyunwoo raised his hand. The gesture was simple, but it commanded attention. Years of diplomacy had taught him how to control a room. "How many ships can you give us?" he asked the council. The council members looked at each other. Finally, the Draxian spoke again. "Ships? We cannot spare military vessels. The Kresh might attack other worlds. We must defend our own people first." "So you offer nothing," Doyen said. It was not a question. "We offer intelligence," another council member said quickly. "Maps of the Kresh hive structures, biological data, communication frequencies, everything we know." Yuna made a disgusted sound. Doyen put a hand on her shoulder to quiet her. Hyunwoo studied the council for a long moment. Then he looked at the Velrathi ambassador. The alien was crying now. Its tears were thick and purple, running down its face. Behind it, the holographic images continued to show the destruction of its world. "Why ask us specifically?" Hyunwoo said to the Velrathi. "You know what humans are. You know what we do." The Velrathi nodded slowly. "You come from a Class 12 death world. Your planet tried to kill you every day. You learned to fight back against everything. Storms, predators, diseases, each other." The alien took a shaky breath. "The galaxy thinks you are dangerous. They think you are too violent, too aggressive, too willing to destroy." It looked Hyunwoo in the eyes. "That is exactly what we need." The room became very quiet. Even the translation devices seemed to pause. Doyen stood up. He was a tall man with scars on his hands from years of combat. "Ambassador Hyunwoo," he said formally, "the Resilience and her crew are ready. Give us the order." Hyunwoo was quiet for several seconds. He looked at the data, at the images of the dying world, at the desperate alien before him. Then he looked at the council members who offered nothing but information and good wishes. "Captain Doyen," Hyunwoo said clearly, "you are authorized to take whatever actions necessary to stop the Kresh swarm on Velcora. Use your best judgment. Earth stands behind you." The council chamber erupted in noise. Voices overlapped in dozens of languages. Some species protested, others demanded restrictions. A few said humans should not be allowed to operate without supervision. Hyunwoo ignored all of them. He walked over to the Velrathi ambassador and placed a hand on the alien's shoulder. "We will save your people," he said. "But you need to understand something. The way we fight is different from what you know. We will do things that will frighten you, things that might seem cruel. Can you accept that?" The Velrathi looked at the images of its dying world one more time. Then it looked back at Hyunwoo. "Do what you must," it whispered. "Just save them, please." Hyunwoo nodded. He turned to Doyen. "How long until you can move?" 6 hours, Doyen replied. "I need to brief my officers and prepare the fleet." "You have 4 hours, Hyunwoo said. "People are dying." Doyen smiled without humor. 4 hours, then." As the human delegation left the chamber, Yuna walked beside Doyen. "Do you know what we're walking into?" she asked quietly. "A nightmare," Doyen said. "The kind that eats civilizations. And we're just 12 ships. 12 human ships," Doyen corrected. "That's different." Behind them, the council continued to argue. The Draxian elder approached Hyunwoo one last time. "You may regret this decision," it said. "The humans might save the Velrathi. But at what cost? There is a reason we do not fight the way you do." Hyunwoo looked at the ancient alien. "Yes," he agreed. "There is a reason. You are not willing to pay the price. We are." He paused at the door. "That is what makes us Deathworlders. We understand that sometimes survival requires sacrifice, even if that sacrifice is our own innocence." The ambassador left without waiting for a response. 4 hours later, 12 human warships left Velmora Prime Station. They jumped into dark space heading for Velcora. Behind them, the galaxy watched and worried, not just about the Kresh swarm, but about what the humans would do to stop it. The Velrathi had asked for help. They were about to learn what that word meant to creatures from Earth. They had asked Deathworlders to save them, and Deathworlders always answered. The human fleet dropped out of dark space at the edge of the Velcora system. Captain Doyen stood on the bridge of the Resilience, looking at the main view screen. What he saw made his stomach turn. Velcora had been a beautiful world. The records showed blue oceans and green continents, cities built in harmony with nature. The Velrathi loved their planet and took care of it for thousands of years. Now half of it was black. "Analysis," Doyen ordered. Yuna worked at her station, fingers moving quickly across controls. Numbers and images filled her screens. "The Kresh have consumed 40% of the planet's biomass," she said. Her voice was steady, but Doyen could hear the anger beneath it. "That includes vegetation, animal life, and—" She stopped. "Say it," Doyen said quietly. 2 million Velrathi, maybe more. The readings are unclear because the Kresh break down organic matter so completely." Lieutenant Nari looked up from the tactical station. She was young, only 25, but she had survived combat on Mars during the rebellion. "Captain, I'm picking up distress signals from underground bunkers, hundreds of them. They're fading." "Fading how?" Commander Taehyun asked. He commanded the Orbital Strike Division and had just arrived on the bridge. "They're starving," Nari said simply. "Running out of air. Some bunkers report Kresh digging toward them." Doyen clenched his fists. "How long do they have?" "The closest bunkers? Maybe a week. Others are already gone." Sungho, the fleet strategist, stepped forward. He was a calm man who rarely showed emotion, but his face was hard now. Captain, I recommend we establish orbital superiority first. Clear the space around the planet of any Kresh bioships. Then we can— No, Doyun interrupted. We don't have time for systematic approach. Those people are dying now. He turned to Nari. Lieutenant, pick 4 people. Best ground fighters we have. You're going down there. Nari stood immediately. What's the mission? Reconnaissance. I need to see what we're dealing with. Real information, not sensor data. Doyun looked at Yuna. You're going to take equipment to collect Kresh samples? Yuna nodded. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but she had trained for situations like this. What are we looking for specifically? Weaknesses, Doyun said. Ways to kill them. All of them. 3 hours later, Nari's team was on the surface. They had dropped in a stealth pod on the edge of a Kresh infection zone. The area had been a farming community 2 months ago. Now it was a nightmare. The ground was covered in black organic matter that pulsed like a heartbeat. Tall spires made of bone and flesh reached toward the sky. These were Kresh hive nodes. They grew by consuming everything around them. As Nari watched, a small animal wandered too close to one of the spires. Tendrils shot out and grabbed it. The creature screamed for 30 seconds before going silent. Contact in the biological structure, Yuna said quietly. She was scanning with her equipment. The nodes are connected underground. It's a network. One giant organism spread across the continent. Jihoon, the combat medic, knelt beside a strange mound. He brushed away some of the black matter, then he jerked back. Oh no! Oh God, no! Nari moved to his side. She looked down and felt bile rise in her throat. It was a Velrathi, partially absorbed into the Kresh structure, still alive. Its eyes moved. Its mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The Kresh were keeping it alive while slowly consuming it. Can we save it? Nari whispered. Jihoon scanned the victim with medical equipment. His hands shook. The Kresh spores are in its bloodstream, in its brain. Even if we cut it free, it would die in hours. He looked at Nari with haunted eyes. It's been like this for weeks. Feeling everything. Nari stood up. She pulled her sidearm and aimed carefully. One shot. The Velrathi stopped moving. Mercy, she said quietly. They moved deeper into the infected zone. Everywhere they looked, there were more victims. Some were too far gone to help. Others were so freshly caught that they still screamed. The Kresh didn't just kill, they fed. And they kept their food alive as long as possible. Yuna collected her samples with mechanical precision. She couldn't allow herself to feel. Not yet. There would be time for emotion later. Right now, she needed data. Team lead, this is Scout 2, a voice said over the radio. You need to see this. They found their scout at the entrance to a large Kresh structure. It had been a school before the invasion. Now it was a feeding pit. Inside were children, dozens of young Velrathi caught in the black organic webbing. Some were already partially consumed. Others were still whole, crying weakly for parents who would never come. Nari's team stood at the entrance, trained soldiers, all of them. They had seen combat. They had seen death. But this was different. Jihoon ran to the nearest child. He scanned it quickly, then his shoulders slumped. Infected, he said. They're all infected. Spores throughout their systems. He looked at the others. I can't save them. If we take them to the ship, the Kresh will spread to our medical bay. So we leave them? One of the soldiers asked. No, Nari said. Her voice was ice. We end their suffering. Then we burn this whole place to ash. It took them 20 minutes. 20 minutes that would haunt them forever. When it was done, Nari set charges at the base of the structure. They were back at the pod when the explosions turned the feeding pit into flame. Back on the Resilience, Nari gave her report to Captain Doyun and the senior officers. She spoke in a flat voice, describing everything they saw. When she finished, the room was silent. "The creche don't have individuals," Yuna added. "They're a hive mind. Every node is connected. They feel no pain, no remorse, no fear. They exist only to consume and reproduce." "Can they be reasoned with?" Taehyun asked. "No," Yuna said firmly. "I analyzed their biology. They're parasites on a galactic scale. They can't be negotiated with any more than you can negotiate with a virus." Sungho pulled up tactical displays. "I have a strategy," he said. "We establish orbital platforms here, here, and here. Use precision strikes to eliminate creche nodes while minimizing damage to the planet. Slow and careful. It will take approximately 6 weeks," Doyen finished. "Maybe 8. "Yes, sir." "Those people don't have 6 weeks." Doyen stood and walked to the view screen. He looked at the planet below, half black, half still fighting. "How many Velrathi are still alive?" 3 million, Nari said quietly. "In bunkers all over the planet, but the number drops every day." Doyun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. "Taehyun, prepare the orbital strike division. Full incendiary loadout." "Sir?" Taehyun looked surprised. "We're going to burn the creche off this planet," Doyen said. "All of it. Every contaminated area." "Captain," Sungho said carefully, "that will cause massive ecological damage. The forests, the farmlands, entire ecosystems will regrow," Doyen interrupted. "Dead ecosystems can recover. Dead people cannot." He turned to face his officers. "I know what I'm ordering. I know what it will cost. But if we try to be careful, try to save everything, we'll save nothing. The creche will adapt. They'll spread. And in 6 weeks, when we're still being cautious, those 3 million Velrathi will be dead." "The Velrathi won't understand," Yuna said quietly. "They'll see us destroying their world." "Then we explain," Doyun said. "After we save them." He moved to the command chair. "All ships, this is Captain Doyun. Authorization code Alpha 77. Implement Purge Protocol. We have one objective: eliminate every creche organism on this planet. Speed is priority. Minimize casualties, but the mission comes first." "The Council will protest," Taehyun said. Doyun smiled without humor. "The Council isn't here. We are." He looked at each of his officers. "The Velrathi asked us for help. They asked Deathworlders to save them. Now they're going to learn what that means. We don't fight to wound. We don't fight to push back. We fight to win. Completely. Totally." He pressed the fleet-wide communication button. "All personnel, this is the captain. What we saw down there today was an atrocity. Children kept alive as food. Innocent people consumed over weeks of torture. The creche are not an enemy. They're a plague." His voice grew colder. "And we are the cure." The fleet began to move into position. Weapons charged, targeting systems locked on. In 12 ships, human soldiers prepared for what was coming. They would save the Velrathi. But the galaxy was about to see why you should never ask Deathworlders for help unless you were ready for their answer. And their answer was always the same: total destruction. The first strikes came at dawn on the primary continent. Commander Taehyun watched from the bridge of the Hammer as his division opened fire. Orbital weapons platforms released their payloads. Missiles screamed through the atmosphere. Each one carried incendiary compounds designed to burn at 3,000 degrees. The creche nodes never saw it coming. Explosions bloomed across the surface like deadly flowers. The black organic structures burst into flame. The fire spread rapidly through the connected network. Within minutes, entire forests of creche growth were burning. "Impact confirmed," Taehyun reported. 80% of surface nodes in Sector 7 are eliminated. On the Resilience, Captain Doyun watched the tactical display. Red icons representing creche positions blinked out one by one, but new ones kept appearing. The creche were adapting, moving underground, trying to escape the flames. "They're learning faster than expected," Una said from her station. She monitored the creche biological responses. "They're changing their structure, growing heat-resistant outer layers." "How long until they adapt completely?" Doyen asked. 48 hours. Maybe less." "Then we don't give them 48 hours. Doyen opened fleet communications. "All ships, Phase 2. Chemical dispersal." In the hangar bays, fighter pilots ran to their craft. Minho strapped into his fighter and launched within seconds. Behind him, 30 more fighters screamed out of the carrier. They formed up and dove toward the planet. "Raptor Squadron, this is your target zone," Minho said over the radio. He highlighted an area on their displays. "We go in low and fast. Drop your payloads directly on the creche structures. Don't worry about precision. We want saturation coverage." The fighters hit atmosphere at dangerous speeds. Minho's craft shook from the friction, but he held course. Below him, the creche nodes were already trying to grow protective shells. They were learning, evolving, trying to survive. But they had never fought humans before. Minho's squadron released their weapons at 200 meters. Specialized bombs burst open, spraying chemical compounds across the creche growth. The substance ate through organic matter like acid through paper. The creche structures began to dissolve, melting into pools of black liquid. "Direct hit!" someone shouted over the radio. "Target zone is liquefying!" But the creche fought back. Tendrils shot up from the ground, trying to catch the low-flying fighters. One pilot wasn't fast enough. The tentacles wrapped around his craft and pulled it down. The fighter exploded on impact. "Raptor 4 is down," Minho reported, his voice tight. "Continue mission. Don't let him die for nothing." The assault continued for hours. Orbital bombardment, chemical strikes, fighter runs. The humans attacked with relentless efficiency. They didn't rest. They didn't pause. They gave the creche no time to adapt or recover. On the ground, Lieutenant Nari led human soldiers into the war zones. They wore sealed combat suits and carried weapons no other species in the galaxy would use: flamethrowers, incendiary grenades, weapons designed not just to kill, but to completely destroy. "Contact front!" a soldier called out. A mass of creche tendrils erupted from the ground. They moved fast, reaching for the human squad. But Nari was faster. She triggered her flamethrower. Fire engulfed the creche structure. The tendrils withered and burned. The soldiers advanced through the flames without hesitation. "Clear the bunker entrance," Nari ordered. "There are Velrathi inside." They found the bunker door covered in creche growth. The aliens inside had been trapped for weeks. The creche had been slowly digging through the walls. Another day, and they would have broken through. Jihun, the medic, went in first. He found 40 Velrathi, weak and terrified. "We have survivors," he called out. "Get transport here now." As they evacuated the Velrathi, one of them grabbed Nari's arm. "You're destroying everything," the alien said weakly. "The forests, the rivers, our cities, all burning." Nari looked at the Velrathi. Her face was hidden behind her helmet, but her voice was gentle. "Yes, we're destroying everything the creche touched, because if we don't, they'll come back. Your world can be rebuilt. Your people can't be brought back from death." The Velrathi didn't respond. It simply watched as human soldiers burned away the creche growth with cold efficiency. Back on the Resilience, Una worked frantically in the science lab. She had been analyzing creche biology for 36 hours straight. Her eyes were red from exhaustion, but she couldn't stop. There had to be a better way, a faster way. "Captain," she called out over communications, "I have something." Doyen arrived in the lab within minutes. "Report." Una pulled up her research. "The creche have a genetic vulnerability. Their hive network requires constant communication between nodes. I've engineered a viral agent that attacks their genetic structure specifically. It spreads through their biological network like a disease." "How effective?" 98% kill rate within 6 hours of exposure." "Deploy it," Doyen ordered immediately. Sir, I should tell you, it's extremely aggressive. It will kill every Kresh organism it touches. There's no off switch. Once we release it, it spreads until all Kresh on the planet are dead. That's the point, Doyen said. Package it for atmospheric dispersal. I want it deployed within the hour. The viral agent was loaded into atmospheric processors. The Resilience moved into position over the most heavily infected continent. The launch was simple, quiet, no explosions, no fire, just small canisters released into the upper atmosphere. The virus spread on the wind. 12 hours later, the Kresh began dying. Their structures collapsed. Their networks failed. The black organic matter turned gray and crumbled to dust. Across the planet, Kresh nodes fell silent one by one. The Velrathi watched from their bunkers. They saw human ships overhead. They saw the fires in the distance. They heard the explosions. And slowly, they heard something else. Silence. For the first time in months, there were no Kresh sounds, no pulsing of organic structures, no scratching at bunker walls, just silence. Captain, Taehyun reported, Kresh biological signatures are dropping planet-wide, 90% reduction in 48 hours. But not everyone celebrated. On the surface, Minho walked through what had been a beautiful valley. Now it was ash. The trees were gone. The rivers ran black with chemical runoff. The grass had burned away to bare dirt. His squadron had done this, following orders, saving lives. But the cost was written in the destroyed landscape. Was it worth it? His co-pilot asked quietly. Minho looked at the devastation. Then he looked at the transport ships landing nearby, evacuating Velrathi survivors. Ask them in 10 years, he said, when they've rebuilt, when their children are alive. Ask them if it was worth it. On the 72nd hour of the operation, Captain Doyen received a communication. It came from deep space, from the Kresh network, the first communication the Kresh had ever sent to another species. The message was simple. Negotiate. We retreat. Spare us. The bridge fell silent. Sung-ho looked at Doyen. Sir, they're offering surrender. Doyen stared at the message. He thought about the feeding pits, the children kept alive as food, the Velrathi absorbed into living structures. He thought about the 14 billion lives consumed across 23 worlds. Send response, Doyen said quietly. Message reads, humanity does not negotiate with parasites. We exterminate them. He turned to Taehyun. Locate the source of that transmission. Find where they're retreating to. Sir, if they're surrendering, they're not surrendering, Doyen interrupted. They're running to regroup, to build their strength and return. That's what parasites do. They consume until nothing is left, then they move to new feeding grounds. His voice grew cold. Not this time. This time, we follow them home, and we end them there. The Velrathi government sent their own message to the human fleet. They begged Doyen to stop. They said enough destruction had occurred. They said the Kresh were leaving, and that should be enough. Captain Doyen read the message and deleted it. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. We're going hunting. Commander Sung-ho approached him quietly. Captain, the mission was to save Velcora. We've done that. The Council will not approve us pursuing the Kresh beyond this system. The Council asked us to save them, Doyen said. That's what we're doing. Not just the Velrathi. Everyone. Because if the Kresh survive, they'll be back. Maybe not here. Maybe not this decade. But they'll find another world. Another species. And it will happen all over again. He looked at his officers. At Taehyun. At Yuna. At Nari and Jihoon, who had just returned from the surface. We didn't come here to push back the darkness. We came here to turn on the lights, and that means hunting down every last Kresh in the galaxy. The human fleet finished its work on Velcora. 3 million Velrathi had survived. Their world was scarred, burned, broken, but alive. As the human ships prepared to leave, one Velrathi official sent a final transmission. "We asked for your help. You gave us survival, but we didn't understand the price." Doyen responded simply, "The price is always high, but extinction costs more." The 12 human warships left Velcora orbit. They tracked the Kresh biosignatures into deep space. They followed a trail of retreating aliens who had finally learned fear. They followed them home, and the galaxy held its breath, wondering what would happen when Deathworlders decided that destroying one enemy wasn't enough. They wanted to destroy them all. The human fleet jumped through dark space, following traces of Kresh biomatter. 3 days out from Velcora, they found the first conquered world. Commander Sungho now led the pursuit fleet from the battleship Indomitable. Captain Doyen had given him full authority to track and eliminate Kresh forces wherever they fled. The planet was designated Theta 7 on star maps. No one knew its original name. The Kresh had consumed the civilization that lived there 5 years ago. Now it was a dead world, stripped of all life. Only bare rock and empty oceans remained. "Life signs?" Sungho asked. "None," a sensor operator replied. "The planet is sterile. Everything organic is gone." Yuna studied the readings from the science station. This is what Velcora would have become. Given another year, maybe less. She looked at Sungho. "How many worlds like this did we find?" "This is the 4th, Sungho said quietly. They had tracked the Kresh through 3 star systems. Each system had dead worlds, billions of beings consumed, entire civilizations erased. The Kresh had been spreading across the galaxy for decades, and no one had been able to stop them. Until now. "Continue tracking," Sungho ordered. "They're running toward something, a home base, a breeding ground. Whatever it is, that's our target." Lieutenant Nari had volunteered for deep reconnaissance. She took small teams onto Kresh-held worlds to gather intelligence. It was dangerous work. The Kresh knew humans were hunting them now. They had started laying traps. On the 5th world, Nari's team found something that changed everything. The planet had been conquered recently. The structures were still fresh, and deep inside a massive hive complex, they found the feeding chambers. Nari's team moved carefully through the organic corridors. The walls pulsed with bioelectrical energy. Everything was alive, the floor, the ceiling, even the air seemed to breathe. "Contact," one of her soldiers whispered. They had found the larval farms. Thousands of beings hung suspended in organic webbing. Most were already dead, but some were alive, barely. Their bodies were being slowly drained of nutrients to feed young Kresh larvae. The process kept them conscious, aware, feeling everything. Jihoon moved from victim to victim with his medical scanner. His hands shook. "Most are beyond help," he said. His voice was hollow. "But some we might be able to save." "How many?" Nari asked. "Maybe 50, if we extract them in the next few hours." Nari made a decision. "Call for emergency medical transport. We're pulling everyone we can save." She looked at the hundreds of beings they couldn't help. "For the others, make it quick." It took 6 hours to evacuate the survivors. Each one had to be carefully cut free from the Kresh webbing. Each one was infected with spores. The medical teams worked frantically to purge the infections before they spread. One survivor, a female from a species Nari didn't recognize, grabbed her arm as she was carried to the transport. "My children," the alien whispered. "Please, find my children." Nari searched the databanks. She found records. The alien's children had been on a colony transport. The Kresh had intercepted it 3 months ago. "Where?" the alien begged. "Where are they?" Nari looked at the data. Then she looked at the alien. Sometimes honesty was cruelty, but lies were worse. "They were taken to a Kresh breeding world. I'm sorry." The alien understood. She started crying, deep, painful sobs. Jihoon sedated her gently. Back on the Indomitable, Nari reported to Sung-ho. "We saved 73, she said. Out of thousands, maybe tens of thousands across all the feeding chambers." "You did what you could," Sung-ho said. "It's not enough." Nari's voice was sharp. "It will never be enough." "Not while the creche still exists." Sung-ho nodded slowly. "Then we make sure they don't." Intelligence Officer Hana had been monitoring creche communications for weeks. The creche rarely communicated. They used biological signals, not technology. But Hana was good at her job. She learned to read the patterns, to understand the signals. "Commander," she called out, "I found it. The creche prime world." Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. "You're certain?" Sung-ho asked. Hana pulled up her data. "The creche biosignatures all point to a single location, 3 systems away, heavy gravitational readings, dense organic signals." She looked up. "It's where they breed, where they come from. Every creche in the galaxy traces back to that world." Sung-ho studied the information. "Population estimate? Conservative guess? Billions. Maybe trillions. The entire planet is one massive hive structure." The bridge was silent. Finally, Sung-ho spoke. "Contact Captain Doyen. Tell him we found the source." The message took hours to reach Velcora. Doyen's response was immediate and clear. "Authorized to proceed. Use any means necessary. End the threat permanently." But there was a second message. This one from Ambassador Hyun-woo at the Galactic Council. "Return to Velcora immediately. The Council demands you cease offensive operations. The creche are retreating. Further aggression violates galactic law." Sung-ho read both messages. Then he deleted the second one. "Plot course for the creche prime world," he ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir," his first officer said carefully, "the Council's orders are not my orders," Sung-ho interrupted. "Captain Doyen gave me a mission. Find the creche homeworld. End the threat. That's what we're going to do." The officer hesitated. "Sir, this could mean war with the Council. They could see this as human aggression." Sung-ho turned to face his crew. "The Council had decades to stop the creche. They did nothing. Billions died while they debated and formed committees. We asked for their help at Velcora. They gave us information and good wishes." He paused. "We're soldiers. We were given a mission. We're going to complete it. If the Council wants to punish us afterward, that's fine. But at least the creche won't be around to consume another world." The crew looked at each other. Then, one by one, they nodded. "Set course," Sung-ho said. "All ships, prepare for combat operations." The human fleet jumped toward the creche prime world. It took 2 days to cross the distance. When they dropped out of dark space, even the experienced crew fell silent. The planet was massive, 3 times the size of Earth, and every inch of it was covered in creche structures. Organic towers reached into space. The atmosphere was thick with spores. Bioships orbited the world like a swarm of insects. "How many creche?" Sung-ho asked quietly. Hana worked her instruments. "Readings are... I can't get an accurate count. There's too much organic mass. But if I had to estimate..." She looked up. "Trillions, maybe more. The whole planet is basically one giant creche organism." "And it's breeding," Yuna added. She was reviewing the biological data. "I'm reading new creche formations, young ones. If we don't stop them here, they'll spread across the galaxy within a generation. Nothing will be able to stop them." Sung-ho stood from his command chair. He walked to the view screen and looked at the monstrosity before them. A world of parasites. A planet that existed only to consume others. "Tactical assessment," he said. Taehyun pulled up military data. "Conventional weapons won't work. There's too much mass. Even with all 12 ships firing continuously, it would take years to eliminate them all." "What about the viral agent? The one we used on Velcora?" Yuna shook her head. Won't work. The Kresh here are the source. They're adapted. They've evolved resistance to every biological weapon in their genetic memory. Sung-ho nodded slowly. He had expected this. There was only one option left. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but hope was a luxury they couldn't afford. "Get me Captain Doyen," he said. "Secure channel." The connection took minutes to establish. When Doyen appeared on screen, he looked tired. "Report. We've found the Kresh Prime world," Sung-ho said. "It's bigger than we thought. More populated. Conventional weapons won't be sufficient." Doyen was silent for a moment. He knew what Sung-ho was asking. "You want to use planet killers?" "Yes, sir." "That's genocide," Doyen said quietly. "Wiping out an entire species, even parasites, even monsters." "Sir, if we don't—" "I know," Doyen interrupted. "I know what happens if they survive." He looked directly at Sung-ho. "The Kresh have consumed 23 worlds, billions of lives. They keep their victims alive while feeding. They have no mercy, no conscience. They exist only to spread." He paused. "But we're not them. What we do here defines us. Defines humanity." "Then what do we do?" Sung-ho asked. Doyen was quiet for a long time. "The right thing," he finally said. "We save the galaxy, whatever the cost to our souls." He took a deep breath. "Authorization code Omega Black 3. Planet killer weapons are approved. May God forgive us." The channel closed. Sung-ho turned to his crew. "Arm planet killer warheads. Target the planet's core. Full spread." Around him, officers moved to their stations. No one spoke. They all understood what they were about to do. They were going to destroy a world, eliminate a species, commit an act so terrible that history might remember them as monsters. But they were also going to save countless lives, stop an enemy that could never be reasoned with, end a threat that had consumed billions. "Weapons ready," Tae-hyun reported. His voice was steady, but his eyes were haunted. "Fire!" Sung-ho ordered. The warheads launched. 12 massive weapons, each carrying enough destructive power to crack a planet's crust. They streaked toward the Kresh Prime world. The Kresh bioships tried to intercept, but they were too slow. The warheads penetrated the atmosphere, burrowed through the organic layers, reached the planet's core, and detonated. The planet shuddered. Cracks appeared across the surface. Lava erupted from the wounds. The organic structures caught fire. Trillions of Kresh died in seconds. The human crew watched in silence as a world died. It took 6 hours for the planet to break apart completely. When it was over, nothing remained but debris and ash. The Kresh were extinct. Sung-ho stood at the view screen. "Set course for Velcora," he said quietly. "Let's go home." Behind them, in the empty space where a planet had been, the remains of the Kresh slowly drifted apart. The galaxy was safe, and humanity would carry the weight of what they had done forever. 6 months after the destruction of the Kresh Prime world, Captain Doyen stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was packed. Representatives from hundreds of species had come to witness this moment. Some called it a trial. Others called it a reckoning. Doyen wore his military uniform. He stood straight, hands behind his back. Beside him stood Ambassador Hyunwoo. Behind them, the rest of the crew: Yuna, Taehyun, Nari, Jihoon, Sung-ho, and dozens more. All of them had come to face judgment. The council elder, a Draxian who had lived for 3,000 years, spoke first. "Captain Doyen, you and your fleet are accused of excessive use of force, unauthorized military action, destruction of multiple worlds, and genocide against the Kresh species." The elder's voice echoed through the chamber. "How do you answer?" Doyen looked at the elder. Then he looked at the assembled representatives. "Guilty," he said simply. The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded punishment. Others demanded understanding. The elder raised a crystalline hand for silence. "You admit to these crimes?" They're not crimes, Doyen said. They're facts. We used extreme force. We acted without full council approval. We destroyed the Kresh homeworld. He paused. But they're not crimes. They're necessities. You destroyed an entire species! Someone shouted from the gallery. Doyen turned toward the voice. Yes, we did. His voice was calm but hard. The Kresh consumed 23 worlds, billions of lives. They kept their victims alive while feeding on them. They had no mercy, no capacity for negotiation. They existed only to consume and spread. He looked back at the elder. We stopped them, permanently. A Torval representative shimmered forward. You had no right. The council makes these decisions, not individual species. The council had decades, Ambassador Hyun-woo said, standing. The Kresh spread for years while you debated. How many committees did you form? How many studies did you commission? Meanwhile, civilizations died. We were seeking a peaceful solution, the Torval protested. There was no peaceful solution, Yuna said. She stepped forward with her data tablet. I studied Kresh biology extensively. They are a hive mind. They have no individuals, no consciousness as we understand it. They're biological machines programmed to consume organic matter. She displayed her findings for the council. Negotiating with them is like negotiating with a forest fire. It's impossible. The elder examined the data. Even so, the destruction of an entire world, an entire species, this is not the way we do things. Then how would you have done it? Doyun asked. Tell me, what would the council have done? The elder was quiet. Exactly, Doyun said. You don't know, because you've never faced something like this. You're from garden worlds, safe planets. When you fight, it's with rules, with honor, with limitations. He looked around the chamber. We're from Earth, a Class 12 death world. Our planet tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight without mercy when survival required it. That's what made you afraid of us. And that's exactly what you needed. A small voice spoke up from the back. May I speak? Everyone turned. A Velrathi stood there. It was the matriarch, the leader of the survivors. She was old, her blue skin faded, but she walked with dignity to the center of the chamber. Matriarch, the elder said gently, you need not testify. You were a victim in this matter. That's exactly why I must speak, the matriarch said. She turned to face the assembled council. 6 months ago, my world was dying. The Kresh had consumed half our planet. My children hid in bunkers waiting to die. We came here and begged for help. You gave us sympathy and information. Only the humans gave us action. They destroyed much of your world, a council member said. They destroyed the Kresh-infected areas, the matriarch corrected. Yes, our forests burned. Our cities were damaged. Our ecosystems were scarred. But my people survived. 3 million of us. We would all be dead if not for the humans. She looked at Doyen. They did what you were too afraid to do. They saved us. At what cost? The Torval representative asked. The Kresh were a sentient species. The Kresh were parasites. The matriarch interrupted. Her voice was sharp. I saw what they did. I saw my neighbors kept alive in feeding pits. I saw children consumed slowly over weeks. The Kresh felt no remorse, had no compassion. They were a plague. She turned to the council. The humans ended that plague. If that makes them criminals in your eyes, then your laws are wrong. The chamber fell silent. Jehoon stepped forward. May I speak as well? When the elder nodded, he continued. I'm a combat medic. I was on the ground at Velcora. I tried to save Kresh victims. Most were too infected. The spores were in their brains, their blood. Even if I cut them free, they would die within hours. His voice shook slightly. I had to watch them die. Some I had to mercy kill. They were in so much pain, begging for death. He looked at the council. You talk about the Kresh like they were just another species. But they weren't. They were a nightmare made real. The humans didn't commit genocide. We committed pest control. Lieutenant Nari added her testimony. I led reconnaissance on 5 different Kresh worlds. I saw the larval farms. Beings from dozens of species kept alive as food. Some had been there for years. They were conscious, aware, praying for death. She looked directly at the elder. You say we used excessive force. I say we didn't use enough. Every day we delayed was another day those victims suffered. Commander Taehyun spoke next. I commanded the Orbital Strike Division. I gave the orders that burned the forests of Velcora. That destroyed ecosystems. That left scars that will take decades to heal. He paused. And I would do it again. Because forests can regrow. People cannot come back from death. The testimonies continued. Officer after officer, each one describing what they saw, what they did, why they did it. Finally, Commander Sungho stepped forward. I led the fleet to the Kresh Prime world. I gave the order to fire the planet-killer weapons. That decision will haunt me for the rest of my life. He looked around the chamber. But I won't apologize for it. The Kresh had to be stopped, not pushed back, not contained. Stopped. Permanently. Because if even one Kresh survived, they would return. They would breed. They would spread. And this would all happen again. The elder was quiet for a long time. Finally, it spoke. What you describe is horrific. Both what the Kresh did and what you did to stop them. It looked at Doyun. You have made us face an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes survival requires us to become what we fear. No, Doyun said. We didn't become what we fear. We became what was necessary. There's a difference. The council deliberated for 3 days. The vote was split. Some species condemned humanity. Others supported them. Some abstained entirely. The final verdict was read by the elder. The council finds that humanity acted with excessive force and violated multiple galactic protocols. However, the council also recognizes that the Kresh posed an existential threat to galactic civilization. The actions taken, while extreme, were arguably necessary given the unique nature of the threat. What does that mean? Hyunwoo asked. It means, the elder said, that you are both guilty and innocent, condemned and thanked. You have saved us, but at a cost that makes us uncomfortable. It paused. Therefore, the Council establishes new protocols. Humanity will be designated as the galaxy's last resort defenders. You will only be called upon when all other options have failed. When the threat is existential. When no one else can or will act. You're making us the villains, Yuna said quietly. No, the elder corrected. We're making you the shield we hide behind when the darkness comes. And we're terrified that we need you. The verdict was final. Humanity would remain in the Galactic Council, but they would be watched, restricted, called upon only in desperation. As the humans left the chamber, the Velrathi matriarch approached Doyun. I wanted to thank you, she said. My people are rebuilding. Our world is healing. We have a future because of you. How many hate us? Doyun asked. The matriarch considered. Some do. They see the burned forests and ruined cities. They remember the fires. She paused. But most remember what came before the fires, the Kresh feeding pits, the screams of the consumed. And they understand that sometimes salvation looks like destruction. Back on Earth, Doyun and his crew were not treated as heroes. The public was divided. Some praised them for saving the Velrathi. Others condemned them for genocide. Protests filled the streets. Some demanded they be honored. Others demanded they be imprisoned. Doyun watched the news reports from his apartment. Jihoon sat beside him. Neither spoke for a while. Do you think we were wrong? Jihoon finally asked. Doyun thought about it. I think we were necessary, he said. Right and wrong are concepts for philosophers. We're soldiers. We do what needs to be done. Even if it costs us our souls? Especially then. Do-yun looked at his friend. Someone has to carry that burden. Someone has to be willing to become the monster to stop the monsters. The galaxy learned that lesson at Velcora. And what did we learn? Do-yun was quiet. That survival has a price. And sometimes the price is living with what we've done. Months turned into years. Velcora slowly recovered. Trees were replanted. Cities rebuilt. The Velrathi had children again. They sang songs about their world's survival. Some of those songs mentioned the humans, not always kindly, but always respectfully. 22 other species that had been conquered by the Kresh were liberated by human recovery teams. Survivors were found in the ruins. They were grateful, but also wary. They had seen what humans could do. The galaxy changed after the Kresh. Species became more cautious, more prepared. The Council established better early warning systems, rapid response protocols, all designed to catch threats before they required human intervention, because everyone understood now. If you called humanity for help, you got total commitment, complete dedication, and absolute devastation of whatever threatened you. Years later, Do-yun retired from active service. He lived quietly on Earth. Sometimes he gave lectures at military academies. Young officers would ask him about Velcora, about the Kresh, about the hard decisions. His answer was always the same. We did what was necessary. The galaxy is safer because of it. But safer doesn't mean innocent. We paid for that safety with our peace of mind, and that's a cost we carry forever. The Kresh were gone, extinct, erased from the galaxy. Not a single organism remained. Humanity had committed genocide to save billions of lives. And the galaxy would never forget what happened when you asked Deathworlders for help. They didn't come to negotiate. They didn't come to contain. They didn't come to push back the darkness. They came to destroy it. Completely. Totally. Without mercy or hesitation. The aliens had pleaded for aid. Deathworlders had answered with total destruction. And in the end, everyone lived with the consequences. The saved, the saviors, and the destroyed. The galaxy was safer. But it had learned a hard truth. Sometimes survival requires monsters, and sometimes those monsters look like heroes. Or maybe heroes look like monsters. In the darkness of space, that line had never been clear. And after Velcora, it never would be again.